A rapid energy transition has several key obstacles. Understanding these obstacles is crucial for a realistic discussion of this topic. This is especially important because most rapid energy transition proposals ignore or assume away the obstacles. Welcome, I'm your host, Tushar. I have over 25 years of experience in the energy field. This includes technology development, commercialization, and evaluation. For more information, please visit my website. In the previous episodes, I covered 5 key obstacles: timely access to critical minerals, timely access to land resources, global energy security concerns, technology gaps, and shortage of skilled workers. Here I'll discuss the 2 final key obstacles: limits of international collaboration and high costs. I'll start with the discussion on international collaboration. A rapid energy transition involves a complete transformation of the global energy system at a fast pace. Such a transformation will require a high level of international collaboration because of its global nature and super fast pace. I'll discuss a few examples of the type of collaborations that will be required. Developed countries will need to provide massive financial assistance to developing countries. Countries will need to agree to level the playing field for international trade. This will be especially important in trade sectors which are at a disadvantage due to higher costs associated with using low carbon technologies. Coordinated efforts will be required to develop and test new technologies across multiple regions. A massive coordination will also be required to deploy low carbon infrastructure across borders, such as electricity networks and pipelines. According to the research by the International Energy Agency, the transition could be delayed by several decades without sufficient collaboration. Unfortunately, achieving a high level of global collaboration is extremely difficult from a practical viewpoint. Why? Because each country has its own challenges and politics, and therefore its own agenda. The conflicting interests and priorities of the countries make it very challenging to maintain a high level of cooperation. This is especially challenging for countries that have a different governing structure, such as a democracy versus an autocracy. The challenges related to high international cooperation are obvious from the many ongoing trade conflicts and hostilities across the globe. Example of a trade conflict is the tax war between the United States and China. Armed conflicts are quite common and are seen in several parts of the world. Furthermore, a country-first agenda is a very popular message in many countries. A country-first agenda is opposite to what is required for a high level of international collaboration. Instead, an Earth-first agenda is most desired. But that is not a realistic expectation. All countries want to improve their positions with respect to others. Countries typically view each other as competition and not as partners. What can be realistically expected in terms of global cooperation? Our recent encounter with COVID-19 can help with this question. In the early days, the World Health Organization and United Nations had declared that a fair access to vaccines to all countries was important to lower the impact from the COVID crisis. A fair or equitable global access would have required a high level of collaboration between countries. But that did not happen. The international collaboration proved to be far from adequate. Millions of lives were at stake, and yet the distribution of vaccines was far from equitable. The country-first approach was obvious. Countries with resources had a much higher access to vaccines, while low-income countries had a very low access. I'll discuss an example based on the data from the United Nations. By March 2022, over 10 billion vaccine doses had been given out worldwide, but only 1% of those went to low-income countries. This meant that about 2.8 billion people were still waiting to get their first vaccine shot at that point in time. The international collaboration to ensure vaccine equity was low despite the obvious and acute importance. By the end of the year 2023, 80% of the population in high-income countries had been vaccinated. The corresponding share in low-income countries was only 33%. The poor experience with the COVID-19 vaccines is revealing about the limits of international collaboration. The fact is that countries are not likely to have an Earth-first agenda, and that will limit international collaboration. Next, let us review the costs for rapid energy transition. For this discussion, we'll focus on the upfront costs or the cost of the physical assets that will be required for the transition. The global upfront cost is estimated to be over $100 trillion. This means that massive investments in low carbon energy will be required over the next few decades in all countries across the globe. The analysis from different groups show that the current investments are trillions of dollars lower than that required for a rapid energy transition. This means that the investment in low carbon energy will need to increase dramatically. However, a rapid access to massive investments will be very challenging. This will be especially difficult for developing countries. United Nations has recently provided data about the magnitude of this problem. Developing nations face an investment gap of $2.2 trillion on a yearly basis for the energy transition. Addressing such a massive gap quickly will be extremely challenging. The situation is actually even more tricky. The cost estimates that we reviewed earlier are based on the physical assets required for the energy transition. They exclude several other costs. Examples of excluded costs are retraining of the workforce, costs associated with stranded assets, and redundancy in energy systems that would be required to avoid supply volatility during the transition. The excluded costs are expected to be huge, considering that a very large workforce will need to be retrained, vast number of assets will be stranded, and a substantial redundancy in energy systems will be required. Clearly, high costs are a major obstacle to a rapid energy transition. This concludes the discussion about the key obstacles to a rapid energy transition. It is crucial to carefully address these obstacles for a successful outcome. Unfortunately, most proposals either ignore or assume away these major obstacles. This is leading to confusion and dangerous misconceptions in this crucial area. I will further discuss this crucial aspect in a future episode.